we're just about to see are both members of the climbing community called the Hive.
My name is Andy Robinson and I'm Holly's dad.
Yeah, my name is Alex DeForge.
How long have you been climbing for?
I have been climbing for 35 years.
How long have you been climbing for?
I've been climbing for less than a year, so I guess like 9 months-ish.
How was climbing doing before COVID-19?
Incredibly well. I mean, I think it's become so popular over the last decade, basically. And I think the Olympics have helped in that popularity. So I think, yeah, it's become a real industry.
So how do you think the climbing community was doing before COVID-19, like pre all of this?
So my impression was that it was like really booming. I felt like especially when I joined, I kept on finding out that I had like lots of friends that I already had that were climbers or were actually like newish to climbing. So I felt like climbing was sort of like in its time of like everyone was sort of like giving it a go. People were trying it out. It was becoming really popular and interesting and like a broad community, at least before COVID hit.
Climbing as a sport has been growing wildly for the past decade and was supposed to be added to the Olympics this year. Apart from growing as a sport, the climbing community called the Hive, which me and the other two interviewees in this video are a part of, has been growing in enormous amounts as well. They opened a new location last year, and plans for a fourth location were already on the way. As pretty much everyone in the world knows right now, COVID-19 is a virus that has caused almost every place in the world to shut down and go into quarantine. And as you can imagine, this has not had the best effect on the climbing community. The Hive and many other climbing gyms have been forced to close. As you can imagine, people still needed somewhere to climb, and with nowhere inside, they went outside. And the only real option for anyone living in the Vancouver area was Squamish. After a while, the boulders in Squamish got pretty packed. There were a lot of people in the popular areas of Squamish, which was not really much good, given that people wanted to maintain a socially distant environment. This, along with many other causes, forced the Canadian government to close all provincial and national parks. And with most of the main popular areas in Squamish falling under those two categories, people were not only not allowed inside, they were stopped from climbing outside too. But as our world moves on and continues to do with the pandemic of COVID-19, the whole community of climbers must ask themselves, what is the future going to hold for climbing?
I mean, I think once restrictions are sort of lifted outdoors, I don't think it'll make much difference outside. Indoors, I think they've got to work out a way that they can kind of reopen and stick within whatever guidelines are provided by the government, keep the members happy and safe, kind of, and just sort of, so it's going to be slightly trickier.
How do you think it's been affected by COVID-19?
Not good. I feel like, so I think that there's like two things happening. So one is that like a lot of people are choosing to not climb, which is often a good decision depending on like where you are and what your situation is, but like to help stop the spread. But I think it's also divided the climbing communities.
As you've heard, the future of climbing isn't looking so bright. Gyms all around the world have been forced to close, with not a ton of hope of opening up soon. There is also a divide in the climbing world right now, of people who believe it is okay to climb outside and people who believe it isn't. And the Olympics that were supposed to continue to boost the sport even further have been cancelled. But I do not believe all hope is lost. As my father said, once the provincial parks reopen, people can start to climb outside again. And I believe, with stricter rules and guidelines, people will be able to return to climbing almost the same way as normal, without any conflicts. And sadly, I believe we will lose climbing gyms throughout this time. But the majority of gyms will be able to stay open and will be reopened in the next couple of months. And climbing companies, although facing financial hardship, are also selling out of holds like crazy, You can't buy holds anywhere anymore. Instead, you're added to a waiting list, which leaves plenty of room for small businesses to open. For example, all the holds on my climbing wall were purchased from a local climber who happens to be making holds over quarantine. However, despite all of this, I still think climbing will continue to move forward as a sport. And although it may have lost some new climbers, gyms, and companies, there will be more in the future. I also think this pandemic shows amazing promise of bringing parts of climbing online. Many gyms, such as the Hive, have started doing things like online yoga classes, online workouts, and online mental workshops, all geared towards climbing.
I have seen provided by places like the Hive, like some climbing people and facilities and like climbing YouTube channels that I follow where like people are doing more and more dedicated like at-home
Mhm.
workouts and training.
Things like these online resources will bring climbing into the future. A future where I know climbing will be able to recover from the very difficult time we're facing in our world right now. It's an amazing sport with an amazing community that will only continue to grow.